highlighting the common aspects of all 7 attacks. Firstly, Your Honors, the IDP camps were created by the government of Uganda to provide a safe haven for the population in the Acholi, Lango, and Tessa regions to protect them from the violence being perpetuated by the LRA. In the attacks, the LRA applied similar tactics, including surrounding the camps, then sending in fighters armed with firearms and machetes. Witnesses describe the LRA attackers as moving in groups of 2, 3, or 4 as they targeted the camps in sections. Some would target the barracks, others would target the trading centers, and ultimately, they also targeted areas that were clearly occupied by the civilian residents living in the IDP camps. Your Honors, the prosecution pauses to look very briefly at the LRA's use of children as child soldiers in those attacks. And the evidence establishes that in all of the attacks, children, including those under the age of 15 years, were used to participate in the hostilities. The prosecution will highlight one example here, and that relates to the attack on the Pajule IDP camp. And there's witness P6 at UGA OTP 0144 0072 at paragraph 11. Your Honors, this witness describes seeing several LRA attackers, and from this witness's vantage point, they all appeared to be no more than 14 years old. This witness recalls these attackers threatening them to open the door or they would kill them. This narrative of children being involved in the hostilities is echoed by the other witnesses who survived the attacks on the Abia, Barlonio, Odek, Pagak, Lukodi, and Abuk IDP camp. In just 9 months, the LRA attacked these 7 IDP camps, terrorizing thousands of civilians across 4 districts: Pader, Leero, Gulu, and Apache. And these districts were all located in northern Uganda. Your Honors, the prosecution's evidence is extensive, and so the prosecution will focus on highlighting a snapshot of the evidence that demonstrates the extreme violence of the crimes, which is best appreciated by hearing the voices of those who witnessed the crimes and also survived them. During the attack on Abia, witness P51 at UGA OTP 0069 0592 at paragraph 56 recalls hearing a commander ordering his fighters to get clubs and to beat the civilians. This witness was severely beaten to a state of unconsciousness and was left with a permanent scar to her face. Witness P57 at UGA OTP 0069 0515 at paragraphs 48 and 51, he participated in the attack on Barlonio, and this witness recalls that Odiambo ordered them to kill everybody in the camp, even the insects. In this witness's words, they went inside the camp and killed men, women, and children. Witness P205 at UGA OTP 000-00656 at pages 43 to 44, also an LRA insider, testified in the Ongwen trial, and he recounts that Dominic Ongwen ordered LRA fighters to go and attack the Odek IDP camp and that they were not to leave anything behind. Ongwen further told them to abduct boys, those fit to be in the army, those above 18 years should be killed, and good girls should be abducted. Witness P11 at UGA OTP 0069 at 0202 at paragraph 29 survived the attack on Pagak IDP camp, and this witness recalls hearing the LRA fighters during the attack shouting, "Whatever you see that breeds should be killed." Witness P410 at UGA OTP 000-00627 at page 60 recalls the LRA commanders telling them to kill whoever they saw walking or alive in the camps or barracks. Witness P187 at UGA OTP 000-00637 at page 31 survived the attack on Lukodi. And this witness observed, and I quote, "They came prepared and ready to kill. They wanted to kill people." Madam President, Your Honors, during and in the aftermath of the attacks, the LRA killed hundreds of civilians. These persons were civilians taking no active part in the hostilities. The prosecution has identified over 600 victims who are listed in the annexes E2I to E81I, which was submitted with the prosecution's pre-confirmation brief. Across the attacks, Your Honors, the LRA adopted a common pattern. They killed their victims by stabbing, hacking them to death with machetes, beating them to death, shooting at them, and bombing their houses and structures, resulting in fatalities. For Pajule, witness P67 at UGA OTP 000-00611 at page 27 recounts that an LRA escort of about 9 or 10 years old was ordered to kill a person by the name of Pangarisio, and this young child fired 3 bullets at the head of Pangarisio, killing him. After this victim was killed, the LRA robbed his corpse, searching and taking money from his pocket. For Abia, witness P20 at UGA OTP 0069, at 0574, at paragraphs 64 to 65. At the time, this witness was a mother with young children, and she recounts that as she was walking, she was scolded by one of the LRA fighters as she was struggling with her child strapped to her back and also struggling with carrying looted items. She recounts that the LRA fighter untied the child from her back and threw the child into a river. And this baby girl was carried away and she drowned, she died. Your Honors, this witness was also left seriously injured. During the attack on Barlonio, this was the most intense of all the attacks, and it has the greatest number of fatalities, numbering of at least 313 civilians. The prosecution's evidence shows that at least 33 of the victims were children. With your permission, the prosecution will show a video of some of the survivors of the attack on Barlonio IDP camp. As a caution, the images may be disturbing. To protect the privacy and dignity of the persons who were filmed, the prosecution has blurred their faces, and this video was recorded in the Leero hospital where many of the victims were being treated. And this video is taken from UGA OTP 0021 to 0006, and the video will play without sound for about 45 seconds, and it captures a series of selected images, scenes, which shows the injuries that were sustained.
Ekiseera kino bagenda kupulenga obutambi buno bulaga engeri gye baacunyamu abantu bannayuganda abaali mu biseera ebyo ddala nga festival bazaabikiddwa olw'ensonga lwaki balina okukuuma obuntu bulamu baleme kubalabisa nnyo naye nga be bano abamu engeri gye babayisaamu. Wali omukyalo omu witness era yavuddeyoko omujulizi n'ayogera engeri gye yali asitudde omwana ng'akwataganye bamutumye okusitula ebintu ebimu ne bamuggyako bebi we ne bamukasuka mu mazzi mu mugga n'afa bambi bwe batyo. Abasajja bano era yawulirirako olumu bakomanda abamu nga boogera batowa order abamu batte buli kiramu baleme kulekawo ekintu kyonna kyonna nga kisa.
Your Honors, the images speak for themselves, and as shown in the video, survivors included both adults and children, men, women, boys, and girls. Moving on to ODEC, we have witness P325, and this is at UGA OTP 0264 at 0242 at paragraph 24. And this witness recalls finding the bodies of a grandmother and her grandson, and this child was still strapped to the back of his deceased grandmother. This witness also saw during the attack LRA fighters shooting at a heavily pregnant woman who was known to them as Asiro Monia, and she was fatally injured, Your Honors. Both mother and unborn baby died. For Pagak, the LRA forced the victims, many of the victims, out of the camp and took them to a nearby area where they were killed. Witness P12 at UGA OTP 0069 at 0002 at paragraphs 42 to 44 provides a complete narrative of how many of the victims of Pagak were killed. And witness 12 describes LRA fighters as holding torches at their feet and their heads as they were forced to lay face down on the ground. And these LRA fighters had wooden branches. I'll read it directly from her statement, Your Honors, starting at paragraph 43. And this witness states, several rebels started beating us, one after the other. They beat 9 people in the line to death. The 10th person was my husband. The person in line next to my husband was a lady, and then it was me. I lifted my head to see what was happening and saw that my husband was beaten to death. The rebels told me, "What are you looking at? If you continue looking, we'll shoot you." Your Honors, several residents, including this witness, was left severely injured, while many others died as a result of the severe beating that the LRA rebels delivered that night. For Kony, children were not spared during the attack, as witness P187 at UGA OTP 000-0636 at page 21 testified in the Ongwen trial that he saw LRA fighters putting children in bags and beating them to death and throwing some of these children who were placed in the bags away into the bush. He also saw the LRA fighters throw 2 babies around
IDP camps and locations across northern Uganda pursuant to Joseph Kony's standing orders. They were forcibly integrated into the LRA. The girls became Ting Ting, a term that the LRA used for young girls who performed domestic chores and looked after the LRA commanders' children. The women became the forced wives of these commanders and were forced to have sexual intercourse with the commanders, bear their children, and perform domestic duties. To support the figure of at least thousands of women and girls as charged in the document containing the charges, we rely on the demographic analysis of returnees that my colleague Ms. von Braun referred to earlier this morning. The prosecution submits that there are substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Kony is criminally responsible as an indirect co-perpetrator for the crimes charged in counts 15 to 22, 24, and 27 to 29 of the document containing the charges, with respect to women and girls that were forcibly integrated into the LRA from at least 1st July 2002 until 31st December 2005 in northern Uganda. Mr. Kony is charged with the following crimes listed in these counts: enslavement, the inhumane act of forced marriage, rape, torture, other inhumane acts of severe abuse and mistreatment, cruel treatment, gender persecution, as well as sexual slavery and forced pregnancy. Mr. Kony is also criminally responsible as an indirect co-perpetrator for the crimes charged in counts 1, 6 to 11, and 14, with respect to the LRA's attack on Luala Girls School on or about 24th June 2003 that resulted in pillaging, as well as enslavement, torture, other inhumane acts of severe abuse and mistreatment, cruel treatment, and persecution of at least 70 schoolgirls. I will first address the first two counts of the crime of enslavement with which Mr. Kony is charged. To avoid double counting of the victims, the prosecution distinguishes between the crime of enslavement in counts 10 and 15 as follows. Count 10 relates to abducted civilians who were released, who escaped or were killed by the LRA in the immediate aftermath of the attacks. These include at least 12 schoolgirls abducted by the LRA from Luala Girls School and who managed to escape shortly after their abduction or were released in the days after the attack on the school. Count 15 relates to women and girls that were abducted and forcibly integrated into the LRA for protracted periods of time as ting-ting and forced wives. They include at least thousands of women and girls abducted from across northern Uganda during the charged period, including the schoolgirls from Luala Girls School who were not released or who were unable to escape. The evidence shows, with regard to the crimes of enslavement, forced marriage, and sexual slavery, that the abducted girls and women who were not released or were unable to escape were subsequently distributed without their consent to LRA commanders and fighters as forced wives and ting-ting to engage in acts of a sexual nature, including sexual intercourse, and to perform domestic duties. Witness P214, who was herself abducted at the age of 17, states, and I quote, Kony decided to distribute us girls to different commanders as wives. Kony was seated under a tree and called us. He looked at us and told his security guards to pick 4 girls for him to stay in his home. Kony then told the top commanders to also pick girls. The commanders pointed at the girls they wanted, and then their security guards would take the selected girls to their homes. After that, Kony allocated the rest of the girls to lower-ranking commanders. Each commander received 1 girl. The girls did not have a choice but to go with the commanders. We were told on where to go, and if one resisted, she was beaten. I saw that some of the girls resisted, and they started crying when they were forcefully taken away. End quote. I refer your honors to UGA OTP 02340026 at page 0034. The evidence shows that the practice of abducting women and girls was rampant across the LRA during the charged period. An example of this practice was the LRA's abduction of about 70 schoolgirls from the Luala Girls School on or about 24th June 2003, which I now turn to. The 2025 dynamic Google Earth map, which appears on your screens, depicts where Luala Girls School is in Uganda. The map and its annotations are premised on the public Annex D of the prosecution's pre-confirmation brief and paragraph 154 of the pre-confirmation brief, which also cites the underlying evidence of the route that the abducted schoolgirls were forced to take and their subsequent distribution within the LRA. Luala Girls School is situated in the Luala village of Kaberamaido district in Teso, in northeastern Uganda. And in June 2003, about 230 girls were resident at this boarding school. By 2003, the LRA were conducting operations in the Teso region in compliance with Mr. Kony's standing orders to abduct women and girls and his persecutory campaign for the LRA to target schoolgirls collectively on the basis of their age and gender. By 23rd June 2003, Stockery Brigade's Mendu Battalion Commander, Charles Kapere, and Wake Up Battalion Commander, Okello Lagulu, were together in the Amuria area, which is about 50 kilometers east of Luala Girls School. And I refer your honors to logbook UGA OTP 0068 0146, page 0270 and 0272. Lagulu and Kapere complied with the instructions that their commander, Charles Tabule, had given them, which was to identify schools in order to attack and abduct schoolgirls. Lagulu and Kapere selected 30 fighters from their battalions to attack Luala Girls School, and Opio Achea, who was Lagulu's second in command, led the attack on the school in the early hours of 24th June 2003. Witnesses P68, P2, and P15 recall that the fighters that attacked the school were armed with machetes, knives, AK-47s, rocket-propelled grenades, and PK machine guns, and that the LRA fighters also included children under the age of 15. The features that we will be identifying on this 2025 Google Earth image of Luala Girls School is also used as a visual aid and premised on a sketch which is at UGA OTP 01390077 and was drawn by witness P75. This image depicts what the school premises looked like in 2003. The direction north is to your left on the image. You can also see the main gate, the classrooms, the dormitories, and the staff quarters. A week prior to the attack, the school teachers and students at Luala Girls School heard from civilians in the area that the LRA were in Amuria and Katakwi and that they were coming to abduct the students. This is from statements UGA OTP 0043, 0131, page 0134, and statement UGA OTP 0139, 0047 at paragraph 57. Upon learning of this impending attack, some students were lucky enough to be taken home by their parents before the LRA fighters got to the school. Other students managed to run away when the fighters attacked the school in the early hours of 24th June 2003. However, witnesses P2, P1079, P1084, P15, P21, P129, P79, and P4 were not so fortunate. They were amongst the 70 schoolgirls ranging between the ages of 13 to 19 that were abducted by the LRA fighters. At about 2:30 a.m., on 24th June 2003, P68 was patrolling the school grounds when he suddenly heard screams from the dormitories. As he approached the generator room, which was across the dormitories on the campus, P68 saw through the pouring rain LRA fighters carrying flashing torchlights while moving in and out of the dormitories. He recalls that the fighters were wearing military uniforms and carrying guns. This is at UGA OTP 0139-0007, paragraphs 48 and 54. P2 was asleep in Saskia dormitory when she was suddenly woken up by a short LRA fighter who she estimates was about 13 years old and carried a rocket-propelled grenade. With him were 4 other LRA fighters who were boys, and they carried ammunition magazines on their waists, as well as knives, guns, and machetes in their hands. This is at UGA OTP 0070-0002 at page 5. P15 was a 13-year-old student and attempted to run away when the LRA fighters came into her dormitory room. An LRA fighter caught her and brought her back to the group of the abducted girls assembled outside in the rain by the LRA fighters. Statement UGA OTP 0043-0131, pages 0133 and 0135. Some of the schoolgirls, like P4, P21, P79, were barefoot, and others like P2, P15, P1079, and P1084 were still in their nightclothes and school uniforms. The LRA fighters then bound the schoolgirls together with rope or bed sheets from their dormitories, which they secured around the girls' waists. They then beat and forced the girls to carry looted food, medicine, clothes, and mattresses while marching them out of the school gate. The first pit stop that the fighters made was Otuboy. It was here that the LRA fighters broke into shops at Otuboy's trading center and looted food and other items like cooking oil and soap, which they then forced the enslaved schoolgirls to carry. A number of the schoolgirls managed to escape, while the LRA fighters were pillaging Otuboy's trading center. But P4 and P15 were not successful. LRA fighters beat them severely with sticks and machetes, and then beat the rest of the enslaved girls across their backs and their buttocks. P4 saw one girl beaten so badly that she was bleeding, and P21 was beaten with a wire lock. Statement UGA OTP 0139-0097, page 0102, and statement UGA D26 0025-0097 at page 0100. P41 recounts that when the enslaved girls arrived at Charles Kapere's location, Kapere warned them not to try and escape because they were going to be taken to someone of a higher rank. Kapere then released about 12 of the schoolgirls who could not walk well and those who were considered too old. This is at UGA OTP 0221-0077 at page 89. On 25th June 2003, Charles Kapere relayed the success of the attack on the girls' school to his commander, Charles Tabule, over the radio He confirmed having attacked Otuboy Mission in Kaveramaido district and that 56 girls were abducted from a secondary school there, but that most of them were ugly. Logbook UGA OTP 0068 0146 at page 0277. Charles Tabule instructed Kapere not to release the girls until his arrival and said that even if the girls are ugly, the LRA will not mind so long as they are fit to be trained as soldiers. Logbook UGA OTP 0241 2490, page 2680, and Logbook UGA OTP 0242 6018 at page 6047. By 26 June 2003, the remaining enslaved schoolgirls from Luala Girls School had arrived in Orungo. The girls were then split between Lagulu and Kapere and taken to Charles Tabule's brigade in Orungo, where all 4 Stokri battalions were gathered. Witnesses P1079 and P21 recall that to get to Tabule's location, the girls had to cross swamps filled with water that was chest high, and that all the while the girls were still tied together at the waist. The LRA radio communication at 1100 hours on